I never planned to be a guy who checks his wife's phone. I always believed in trust, in the sanctity of privacy. But sometimes, life forces your hand in ways you never expected. What started as a simple search for a charger in our bedroom closet led me to discover a second cell phone, one I didn't know existed, hidden in the pocket of Sarah's rarely worn winter coat. The messages I found on that phone didn't just break my heart. They shattered the perfect life we'd built over 7 years of marriage. I'm still reeling from what I uncovered, still trying to make sense of how the woman I thought I knew better than anyone could have been living such a dangerous double life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Before everything fell apart 0.7 years ago, I married Sarah, the love of my life. We met in college. She was the beautiful art student with an infectious laugh who somehow noticed me, the awkward engineering major, at a mutual friend's party. Our connection was instant and deep. Within 3 years, we were married, settled into a comfortable home in the suburbs, and building what I thought was our dream life together. Sarah worked as a graphic designer for a marketing agency downtown, while I had a stable job as a software engineer. We weren't rich by any means, but we were comfortable. We traveled when we could, hosted dinner parties for our friends, and talked about starting a family someday. From the outside, and even from my perspective, we had a picture-perfect marriage. Sure, we had our occasional arguments like any couple, but nothing major. Nothing that ever made me question our foundation. Sarah was always the more social one between us, maintaining a wide circle of friends from various parts of her life. College, work, her yoga studio, you name it. I was more of a homebody with just a handful of close friends. I admired her outgoing nature, though sometimes I'd joke that I needed a spreadsheet to keep track of all her social engagements. That's why when Sarah started working later hours about 6 months ago, I didn't think much of it. Her agency had landed a big client, and she explained that the extra workload was temporary but important for her career. She'd come home tired, but excited about the projects she was working on. I was proud of her dedication and supported her completely. Around the same time, she started a new fitness regimen that had her going to the gym 3 mornings a week before work. Sarah had always been health conscious, so this wasn't out of character either. I remember feeling a twinge of guilt that I wasn't making the same effort to stay in shape, but mostly I was just happy that she seemed so energized and positive. Looking back, there were signs I missed. Small changes that, viewed individually, meant nothing but collectively painted a picture I was too blind to see. Sarah became more protective of her phone, always keeping it face down or taking it with her even for quick trips to the bathroom. She bought new clothes and changed her hairstyle. She started wearing perfume I didn't recognize, but the biggest change was in our intimacy. What once had been spontaneous and frequent became scheduled and rare. We still had date nights, still said I love you every day, but something was different. There was a distance I couldn't identify, let alone bridge. When I would bring it up, Sarah would blame stress from work or fatigue from her early morning workouts. I believed her. God, I believed every word. The day everything changed started ordinarily enough. It was a Saturday morning in early October. Sarah had gone to meet some friends for brunch, something that had become a regular weekend occurrence. I was at home catching up on some work when my laptop battery died. My charger was upstairs in our bedroom. I rummaged through our closet looking for the spare charger I knew we had somewhere. I knocked over a stack of winter clothes we'd stored on the top shelf. While picking up Sarah's gray wool coat, one she hadn't worn since last winter, I felt something heavy in the pocket. I reached in, expecting to find gloves or maybe some forgotten tissues. Instead, my fingers closed around a smartphone. A sleek, black smartphone I'd never seen before. My first thought was innocent. Maybe it was an old phone she'd forgotten about, or perhaps a work phone for her new client project that she hadn't mentioned. But why hide it in a coat pocket? The passcode screen glowed up at me, and I hesitated. This was a line I'd never crossed in our marriage. Sarah's privacy had always been something I respected, but the phone didn't have the familiar lock pattern I was used to seeing on Sarah's regular phone. This one had a simple 4-digit PIN. Almost without thinking, I tried her birth year, 1989. The phone unlocked instantly. My hands were shaking as I stared at the home screen. There were only a few apps installed: WhatsApp, Signal, an email client, and the photo gallery. Heart pounding in my chest, I opened WhatsApp first. There was only one chat thread, with someone saved simply as Jay. The most recent message had come in that morning. "Can't wait to see you today. Same place at 2. Sarah had responded, "Yes." Told him brunch with the girls. Should be free until dinner. Time seemed to stop as I scrolled up through months of conversations. Intimate messages. Plans for meetups. Photos I can't bring myself to describe. This wasn't just an affair. It was a whole relationship, running parallel to our marriage for at least 4 months based on the chat history. I felt like I was going to be sick. The room spun around me as I sat there on our bedroom floor, winter clothes scattered around me, holding physical proof that my marriage was a lie. But even in that terrible moment, something didn't feel right about what I was reading. The language in some of the exchanges seemed odd, almost coded. References to packages and clients that seemed out of place in romantic messages. With a growing sense of dread, I opened the Signal app. Here there were multiple conversations, all with single-letter names, J again, but also M, T, and D. The content of these messages was nothing like the WhatsApp chat. These were businesslike, cold, discussing meeting times, locations, and what appeared to be payments. One message from M read, "Client confirmed for Tuesday. High profile. Double usual rate, but higher risk." UN. Sarah's response, "Need details first." No repeats of the case situation. I moved to the photo gallery next, my finger trembling as I tapped the icon. Instead of more personal photos, I found something far more disturbing: images of documents, passports, driver's licenses, credit cards belonging to people I'd never seen before. There were photos of buildings, security layouts, what looked like schedules, and rotations. What the hell was this? Who was my wife? I checked the email app last, finding it connected to an address I didn't recognize. The inbox contained confirmation receipts for wire transfers to offshore accounts, travel itineraries to cities Sarah had never mentioned visiting, and communications with individuals using obvious aliases. This wasn't just an affair. This was something far more dangerous. A text message alert broke my trance on the secret phone still in my hand. It was from J. Change of plans. Client moved timeline up. Meeting at the red location in 45 minutes. Crucial you're there. I looked at the time, 12:35 p.m. Sarah had left for brunch at 10:30, saying she'd be back around 3. Whatever this was, it was happening now. In that moment, I had to make a decision that would change everything. I could confront Sarah when she returned home, demand explanations for this secret life she was leading. Or I could follow her, see for myself what she was involved in. I chose the latter. I took screenshots of the most damning messages, emailed them to myself, then returned the phone exactly as I'd found it in the coat pocket. I grabbed my car keys, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and determination. I had no idea where the red location was, but I knew Sarah's usual haunts. I drove to the cafe where she often met her friends, but her car wasn't in the parking lot. I tried the shopping center, the park, all the places she might normally be on a Saturday. Nothing.as, I drove aimlessly. My mind raced through possibilities, each more outlandish than the last. Was Sarah involved in some kind of corporate espionage, identity theft, or something even worse? The woman in those messages was a stranger to me, calculating, secretive, operating in a world I knew nothing about. I eventually parked outside a coffee shop, feeling defeated and unsure what to do next. That's when I spotted her car parked half a block down, partially hidden by a delivery truck. It was definitely hers. I recognized the small dent on the rear bumper and the university sticker in the back window. The coffee shop had a clear view of the street, so I went inside and took a seat by the window. 20 minutes passed before I saw Sarah emerge from a nondescript office building across the street. She wasn't alone. A tall man in a dark suit walked beside her, his hand resting casually on her lower back in a gesture that spoke of intimacy. But it wasn't the touch that chilled me. It was the way they both scanned the street with practiced vigilance before separating. I sank lower in my seat as Sarah walked toward her car. The man headed in the opposite direction, disappearing around a corner. I watched my wife, this woman I thought I knew everything about, get into her car and check her appearance in the rearview mirror before driving away. Her face showed no guilt, no conflict, just focused determination. I followed her at a distance, careful to stay several cars behind. Instead of heading home, she drove to an upscale hotel downtown. She parked in the visitor lot and entered through the main entrance. I parked across the street and waited, unsure what I was doing or what I hoped to accomplish. 45 minutes later, Sarah exited the hotel with another man older, well-dressed, with an expensive-looking briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. They shook hands formally before the man got into a waiting town car. Sarah stood watching until the car was out of sight, then checked her watch and walked briskly back to her own vehicle. This time, she drove home. I waited 10 minutes before following, needing time to collect myself before facing her. What would I say? How do you ask your wife if she's living a double life? When I finally arrived home, Sarah was in the kitchen making tea, as if it were any normal Saturday afternoon. She smiled when I walked in, that same warm smile I'd fallen in love with years ago. "Hey, how was brunch?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual while studying her face. "Great. Emma's planning her wedding, so that was most of the conversation," she replied, not missing a beat. "How was your morning? Did you get much work done?" The ease with which she lied sent a cold shiver down my spine. "Not really," I said. "Got distracted." "Well, it's the weekend," she said, reaching for my hand across the counter. "You're allowed to relax sometimes." I looked at her fingers intertwined with mine, the same fingers that had typed those messages, that had possibly done things I couldn't even imagine. I wanted to pull away, to confront her with everything I'd seen, but something held me back. Fear, maybe, or perhaps the desperate hope that there was an explanation that wouldn't destroy us. "Sarah," I said slowly, "you would tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? If you were in some kind of trouble?" Her smile faltered just slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Of course," she said, squeezing my hand. "Why would you ask that?" "No reason," I lied, matching her deception with my own. I love you. I want you to know you can tell me anything." Something flickered in her eyes, concern? Suspicion? Guilt? But it was gone before I could identify it. "I love you too," she said, leaning forward to kiss me gently. "Everything's fine. Perfect, actually." That night, as Sarah slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the weight of what I discovered pressing down on my chest. The woman I'd married, the life we'd built, how much of it was real? And what was I going to do about it? I spent the next 3 days in a fog, going through the motions of normal life while secretly watching Sarah for clues. I checked her regular phone when she was in the shower, nothing suspicious there. Looked through her purse when she asked me to fetch her wallet, no sign of the second phone, and even searched her car while she was grocery shopping, clean. Sarah, meanwhile, acted completely normal, affectionate, engaged in our routines, making plans for Thanksgiving with our families. If she suspected I knew anything, she showed no sign of it. Her performance was flawless, which only made everything more terrifying. On Wednesday evening, she announced she had to work late the following day, another meeting with the important client. I nodded and kissed her goodbye the next morning as if nothing was wrong, then called in sick to work as soon as she left. It was time to find answers. I started by returning to the office building where I'd seen her meet the man in the suit. It was an unremarkable 6-story structure with multiple businesses listed in the lobby directory. None of them seemed suspicious: law firms, a dental practice, an accounting office, and a few tech startups. I had no way of knowing which one might be connected to Sarah. Next, I drove to the hotel, where I claimed to be meeting a business associate and described the man I'd seen Sarah with. The receptionist recognized him as one of our regular international guests, but wouldn't share more information. Frustrated, I returned home and did something I'm not proud of. I installed a hidden tracking app on Sarah's regular phone while she was in the shower that evening. If she was leading a double life, I needed to know where she was really going. Friday passed uneventfully, but on Saturday morning, Sarah announced she needed to run errands. I watched on the tracking app as she drove not to the grocery store as she'd claimed, but to a storage facility on the outskirts of town. She remained there for 20 minutes before driving to a small private airport. My blood ran cold. Was she leaving? Meeting someone? Transporting something? I drove to the airport immediately but stayed in my car at a distance, watching through binoculars as Sarah met with two men beside a small private plane. They talked for about 10 minutes before one of the men handed her a package. She returned to her car with it and drove away. Instead of following her, I decided to confront her when she got home. I couldn't live like this anymore. The suspicion, the fear, the constant deception. Whatever she was involved in, we would face it together, or I would walk away. Those were the only options I could see, but when I arrived home, Sarah's car was already in the driveway. I hadn't expected her back so soon. Taking a deep breath, I entered our house, prepared for the most difficult conversation of my life. The living room was empty, but I heard movement in our home office. I walked quietly down the hallway and pushed the partially open door. Sarah was there, the package from the airport open on the desk. She was photographing what looked like internal corporate documents with the logo of a major pharmaceutical company. The second phone I discovered was connected to a laptop I'd never seen before, and she was so engrossed in her task that she didn't notice me standing in the doorway. "What are you doing, Sarah?" I asked quietly. She spun around, her face draining of color. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, with movements too quick and practiced to be innocent, she closed the laptop and slipped the phone into her pocket. "Mike," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "You're home early." "So are you," I replied. "Though I'm guessing you weren't actually at the grocery store, were you?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "How would you know where I was?" I decided honesty was my only play now. "Because I followed you last weekend. And I found your second phone before that, hidden in your winter coat." Sarah stared at me, perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Then she let out a long breath and seemed to make a decision. "How much do you know?" she asked. "Enough to know that our entire marriage might be a lie," I said, my voice breaking despite my effort to stay calm. "Enough to know you're involved in something dangerous and illegal, but not enough to understand why or who you really are." Sarah gestured for me to close the door, then sat down heavily in the office chair. "You shouldn't have looked into this, Mike. For your own safety." "My safety?" I laughed bitterly. "What about our marriage? Our life together? Was any of it real?" "All of it was real," she said fiercely, looking directly into my eyes. "My love for you has never been a lie. Never. But there are parts of my life I've kept from you, yes. I never wanted you involved in this." "Involved in what, exactly?" I demanded. "What are you, Sarah? A corporate spy? A blackmailer?" She was quiet for a long moment, seeming to weigh her options. Finally, she spoke. "I work for a private intelligence firm. Technically, we're contractors, sometimes for corporations, sometimes for government agencies. My job is to gather information that can't be obtained through conventional means." "You're a spy," I said flatly. "An intelligence operative," she corrected. "And I was one before I met you. It wasn't something I could just walk away from." My mind reeled. So our meeting in college, was that even real? Or was I some kind of assignment? "No," she exclaimed, looking genuinely hurt. "Mike, meeting you was the most authentic thing that ever happened to me. Falling in love with you is real. Building our life together has been real. My work is separate. I've always kept it separate. Except when you're lying to my face about where you're going, who you're with, I countered. Except when you're potentially putting both of us in danger. Sarah ran her hands through her hair, a gesture of frustration I'd seen 1,000 times before. I know how this looks, but my work is important. We track terrorist financing, expose corporate corruption, gather intelligence on human trafficking networks. Yes, my methods aren't always by the book, but the outcomes matter. And the man you were with at the hotel, the one from the office building, who is Jay? Her eyes widened slightly. You read my messages. I had to know what my wife was hiding. Sarah sighed. Jay is my handler. Jason, the meetings you saw were work-related. Nothing personal is happening there, I swear to you. I wanted to believe her, but the intimate tone of some of those messages was hard to dismiss. And I'm just supposed to take your word for that? After discovering you've been lying to me for our entire relationship. Not our entire relationship, she insisted. I've kept my work separate, but everything between us, our home, our friends, our plans for the future, that's all genuine. I'm still the woman you married, Mike. Are you? I asked, because the Sarah I thought I married wouldn't be stealing corporate secrets or meeting strange men in hotels. You don't understand the complexity of what I do, she said, an edge of frustration in her voice. Sometimes maintaining cover requires flexibility in how I present myself. But I have lines I don't cross. I've never compromised our marriage. I gestured to the documents on the desk. And this current operation? What's so important about a pharmaceutical company? Sarah hesitated before answering. They've been suppressing research that shows one of their flagship drugs causes severe birth defects. They've paid off researchers, falsified data, and threatened whistleblowers. I'm gathering evidence that will be released to regulators and the press. It sounded noble, but how could I know if this was the truth or just another lie? Why should I believe anything you tell me now? Because despite all this, I've never lied about loving you, she said quietly. And because I'm giving you a choice now. You can walk away. I'll understand if that's what you need to do. Or you can stay, knowing the truth about what I do, and we can figure out how to move forward. Is there a third option? I asked. Where you quit this life and we start over? Sarah looked away. It's not that simple. There are commitments, obligations, people who depend on the information I provide, and people who would be very unhappy if I suddenly disappeared. So what you're saying is, you're trapped. What I'm saying is, this is complicated. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Mike, please. I know this is a lot to process, but I'm still me. I'm still the woman who loves watching bad sci-fi movies with you on Sunday nights, who can't cook to save her life, who knows all your nightmares and dreams. I felt tears forming in my eyes. I don't know who you are anymore, Sarah. I need time to think. I understand, she said softly. But please don't make any decisions yet. And Mike, don't tell anyone about this. Not for my sake, but for yours. Some of the people I deal with, they wouldn't hesitate to hurt you to get to me. That final warning followed me as I grabbed a bag, threw some clothes in it, and drove to a hotel. The irony wasn't lost on me, checking into the same hotel where I'd seen Sarah meet her contact just days earlier. For 3 days, I stayed in that hotel room, barely eating, barely sleeping, trying to reconcile the woman I loved with this stranger who led a dangerous double life. Sarah texted and called, her messages becoming increasingly worried, but I responded only briefly to let her know I was safe. And on the 4th day, as I sat staring out the window contemplating whether my marriage could be saved, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find a man I'd never seen before, middle-aged, unremarkable looking, but with alert eyes that seemed to assess me instantly. "Mr. Reynolds," he said. "My name is Daniel Hughes. I'm Sarah's supervisor. May I come in?" My first instinct was to slam the door, but curiosity won out. I stepped aside. "I won't take much of your time," he said, declining my half-hearted offer of a seat. I just wanted to confirm some of what Sarah has told you and perhaps fill in some blanks. Why would you do that? I asked suspiciously. Because Sarah is one of our most valuable assets, and her work saves lives. Literally. But she's distracted now, worried about you, about your marriage. And because, frankly, we've invested too much in her to lose her over a domestic situation. His callous framing made my blood boil. Our marriage isn't a domestic situation. It's my life. Of course, he said, not sounding apologetic at all. Which is why I'm here. To help you understand what Sarah does, its importance, and to assure you that despite the necessary deceptions involved in her work, her personal commitment to you has never been in question. You monitor her personal life too? I asked, disgusted. We monitor everything that could affect operational security, he replied evenly. Sarah has maintained impressive compartmentalization between her work and home life, more than most in her position managed to do. And I'm supposed to be comforted by that? Daniel sighed. Mr. Reynolds, I didn't come here to comfort you. I came to offer clarity. Sarah's work has prevented terrorist attacks, exposed human rights abuses, and yes, occasionally involved corporate espionage against companies hiding dangerous information from the public. She saved more lives than you can imagine, while lying to the person closest to her. Operational security requires it, he said simply. But she fought to keep you out of this world precisely because she values what you have together. She wanted one true, uncomplicated relationship in her life. You. I sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. Why are you really here? To convince me to go back to her. I'm here because Sarah has requested extraction from field operations, he said, surprising me. She's asked to be transitioned to an analyst role, which would mean no more covers, no more field missions. She's willing to give that up for you. I looked up sharply. She didn't tell me that, because it's not officially approved yet. It's a significant career sacrifice for her. But she's made her choice. He handed me a business card with just a phone number. If you have questions in the future, you can reach me at this number. One last thing. Mr. Reynolds, regardless of what you decide about your marriage, Sarah's work must remain confidential. I trust you understand the seriousness of this requirement. The threat was clear beneath his professional tone. After he left, I sat for a long time with this new information. Sarah was willing to change her role, to give up fieldwork for me. But could our marriage survive the foundation of lies? Could I ever fully trust her again? 2 days later, I returned home. Sarah was sitting in our living room, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. When she saw me, she stood but didn't approach, giving me space. Your boss came to see me, I said. She nodded. I know. I didn't ask him to, but I'm not surprised. He said you've requested a different position, one that doesn't involve fieldwork. Yes, she confirmed. I should have told you myself, but I wasn't sure it would be approved. I still don't know. I set my bag down. I've been thinking about what this means for us, about whether I can live with having been kept in the dark for so long. And she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I need complete honesty from now on, Sarah, about everything. Your past, your work, as much as you're legally able to share. No more secrets between us. She nodded. I promise. Whatever questions you have, I'll answer them. And I need to know that you're really leaving fieldwork. That we can build a normal life together without looking over our shoulders. That's what I want too, she said. I've already started the transition process. It might take a few months, but I'm done with that life. I took a deep breath. Then I'm willing to try to rebuild what we have. It won't be easy, and I can't promise I'll ever fully understand your choices. But I love you, Sarah. The real you, whoever that turns out to be. She crossed the room then and took my hands in hers. The real me has always been right here with you. Everything else was just a cover, a role I played. But this us has always been my reality. That was 6 months ago.